arts and culture in South Africa right now is possibly in the most interesting times, because we come from a period where there was a lot of fighting, where people were doing great work to keep it alive, and now we don't have to fight anymore. And now that we don't have to fight anymore, what are we doing? And that's a question that I really would like, if when we carry on here, if some of you could answer that, if any of you can answer that question. We don't have to fight anymore. We don't. The only fight we have is corruption, but it's not a wall that is built for you not to be able to do something. So we are in a position now in South Africa where people are looking at outlets to create more stories to tell. But for the first time, we are not telling foreign stories. We are not telling stories of people that are European, or we're making stories up, but we, in the performing arts world, where people are starting to tell their own stories. Their own, not even their community or something, but their own personal stories. So we are getting to a point where we start seeing people telling us about themselves. There's a wonderful they call themselves the theater duo, two young men, and they wrote a play called Tswala. And this play is basically about this young boy's life from birth, from his the womb, from his mother's womb, and from being born to being into this world, to discovering all the strange societal configurations that we all live with, to the point where he can claim that he's a man, and going through that process. And when you sit and you watch that, and he has a blanket which represents everything from his mother to his wife to his child to the place where he lives, and those are the kind of stories that we are now seeing in the world. And I think it's one of them, his name is Motlatsi, another one, his name is Billy. And there's also a lot of movements in the universities at the moment that are spending time encouraging theatre makers to start telling South African stories. All the funding in South Africa wants to, if you go and say, I'm telling a story about Sekhukhune, you will get money. But if you said, I'm telling a story about Joseph in Soweto in 1973, they'll say, no, it's okay. So we are now living in a time where people are advocating for our own stories to be told. I know that Ndzima is also, I don't know where the recording company is sitting, but you also find that we are sitting now with, I listen to mostly what we call Afro-pop, which is very strange that we call it Afro-pop. But I listen, and it's because it's South African singers singing in their own languages, telling us about, and they all mostly celebrate their mothers, which is quite beautiful to see. Interesting, they never celebrate their fathers. It's very strange. Yes. And we pay for their schools. So basically, the role that we have to play is to tell the stories. Is to tell the stories and to preserve them. Is to say, what do we know? How do we know it? Why do we know it? And why do we want to tell it? And why should it be preserved? Why should I know? I'm one of the unfortunate ones. I do not know where, if I ever have East Tagazelo, because I only discovered about a few years ago that my lineage goes all the way to Zimbabwe. And I didn't know this. I grew up not knowing that my grandfather is actually Zimbabwean. So now I have to spend a lot of my own time going to possibly Zimbabwe to find out who I am. And that's probably the beauty of it, because not all of us, I was saying that earlier on, that there's not a lot of us that can claim that we are pure South Africans, or that we are pure particular ethnic group or a particular clan, because there's always been an intermarriages and intermixes that have created people like us. And so we are sitting now in a position where we have a lot of South Africans that want to create stories and tell stories of our own country, of our own people. But my question is, how much of you know about it? And it is because we in South Africa love compartmentalizing entities or sectors. Because I work in a particular sector, I don't want to know what other sectors are doing. And so we make it the problem of the person that is actually just doing the art, or writing, or painting, or making crafts. But in actual fact, it is all our responsibilities to know what's happening. How much do we know what's happening in our own area, even in a 5-kilometer radius? Because in every city, in every township, a 5-kilometer radius, there is a church, there is a community hall, there is a shopping mall, there is a market, there is those people that sell their own music in the streets. There's all of that. But how much do we engage with it? And so what we find ourselves in South Africa at the moment is that there's a lot of amazing things happening in the sector, but the general population of the country doesn't know about it. And everybody says it's someone else's responsibility. Nobody says it's my own, or they always blame the artist. They don't tell us about it, right? But if we take it from a point of its preservation of our own histories and our own legacies, it should be our interest to find out what's happening. And that way, we can create a much more bigger pool of information in the country. Because the more they are supported, the more money they make, the more they can invest in other shows and in other paintings and as such. So I was talking to Atsima earlier on outside about the state of our government's involvement in the arts. And they're doing great work. They're doing great work up there. They're doing amazing work. They write these beautiful policies. If you go to social development website, if you go to the DAC website, if you go to DTI, you will find these amazing documents about how they want to change the state of arts and culture in South Africa. And it's beautiful, it's lovely language, but none of us have access to it. How many of us know that they have things like that? For instance, the Department of Art and Culture has, I don't know if you knew this, but they started, I think it was 2012, a report, what do they call it? Repository, right? Yeah? Where anybody who has written anything and you want it to be preserved or painted or created, there is a space in the Department of Arts and Culture where you can go and have them keep it safe for the future. But they talk about it, but not even the people in the art know where it is. And so my personal view is, why do I need the government to do that for me? Right? Why do I need them to do it for? I can do it myself. I can go out there and start preserving works myself. I can start by realizing that as much as I need Coca-Cola, I need the arts. I always have wonderful conversations with Spongile Khumalo, who I know very, very well personally. And she's a great advocate of the arts and culture. And the one thing that we celebrate more than anything else is forums like Lekgotla, where people sit in around and they start talking and looking at each other and telling each other stories, mostly around the fire, which is even better, and having that crackling of it going. But it's because that is where we come from. Where I sit in the sector, I get inspired by the fact that my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was possibly a storyteller. who every day around the fire in the evening, they sat and said, do you know what happened to the jackal? You know? And we sit and we used to say, you know, and it was interactive, and you said you were part of it. And it's because of that I want to drive the arts and culture world to change from being what I call the third poor cousin at the bottom there that always says, can I please have 5 rands can I please have 5 rands for this? Which is exciting because it means, like I said earlier on, we don't have to fight anymore. We're now free to talk, to travel, to speak, to mingle with anyone. So because of that wonderful thing, especially millennials, right? I'm looking at this, that when I started singing opera, as I said, I snuck in, right? But when I was 19 years old, I became a professional opera singer. I finished school and I went to become a professional opera singer. There were only 2 black people in a company of 24. So every day of your life, you fought for your place. You had to work 9 times harder. You had to constantly prove yourself. You had to constantly make them grateful that they hired you, you know, because you needed to be told that if you don't behave like us, we will kick you out. That's why I said I'm a product of the gentrification of South Africa, because you learn to assimilate in order to survive. And so now we're in a space where we don't have to do that. Now we're in a space where there is no one that's defining for you who you can be, how you can pursue your future. So I would like for everybody in here to know that the only way we can define the state of, especially music, arts and culture, is by being involved in it. How many of us ask someone to make a copy of a CD for us? Because there's a musician CD that you like very much. You're like, oh, how many of us listen to music through USBs? How much of that music has been bought? Because until we realize that all of that is necessary, it's necessary to purchase that. Because by purchasing it, you're not supporting. You are part of the preservation of our arts and culture. I don't